Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Aditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Dearly beloved, make it so. Well, good evening, everyone. Namaste, and welcome to our study of the spirituality offered to us by Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and their associates. We're studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're reading and discussing it. It is so deeply rich that it will take us a long time, blessedly long time, to make our way through this big book. But there is no urgency, there is no hurry. There's lots to learn, lots to just plain enjoy about the invitation that Sri Ramakrishna offers to us to join him in a transcendent state of consciousness, which is the reason he came, to unchain us, as Swami Nikhilananda writes in Breaker of This World's Chain, to unchain us and set us free. So let's hear more about that as our beloved reader, Hyma Naidu, tells us where we are in the book and what we're about to hear.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 151 on PDF, and it might be 155 in the book. It's entanglement of householders. That's the topic I will be starting with. Okay, speaking of householders entangled in worldliness, the master said, they are like the silkworm. They can come out of the cocoon of their worldly life if they wish, but they can't bear to. For they themselves have built the cocoon with great love and care. So they die there, or they are like the fish in a trap. They can come out of it by the way they entered, but they sport inside the trap with the other fish and hear the sweet sound of the murmuring water and forget everything else. They don't even make an effort to free themselves from the trap. The lisping of children is the murmur of the water, and the other fish are relatives and friends. Only one or two make good their escape by running away. They are the liberated souls. The master then sang, when such delusion veils the world through Mahamaya's spell, that Brahma is bereft of sense and Vishnu loses consciousness, what hope is left for man? The narrow channel first is made, and there the trap is set. But open though the passage lies, the fish, once safely through the gate, do not come out again. The silkworm patiently prepares its closely spun cocoon. Yet even though a way leads forth, encased within its own cocoon, the worm remains to die. The master continued, man may be likened to grain. He has fallen between the milestones and is about to be crushed.
Millstones.
Oh, mills. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry. Man may be likened to grain. He has fallen between the millstones and is about to be crushed. Only the few grains that stay near the peg escape. Therefore, men should take refuge at the peg, that is to say, in God. Call on Him, sing His name, then you will be free. Otherwise, you'll be crushed by the king of death.
Isn't that a wonderful metaphor?
It is.
The millstone of the universe, of
Yes.
the world of life. It crushes us. It simply grinds us to powder unless we stay, as the master says, unless we stay near the peg. Now, a grain of rice or wheat has no ability, has no mobility, but we have that mobility. We have that emotional, spiritual, and for that matter, physical mobility, to where we can move away from that which will crush us and move toward that which will liberate us. Of course, the master's metaphor of the silkworm is a little misleading, because the silkworm normally doesn't die in the silk cocoon, in the cocoon that it is prepared. It chews its way out and becomes a moth, a silk moth, and perpetuates itself. But we see what the master was driving at. And certainly the metaphor of the fish in the trap is very apt also. So these are wonderful metaphors and worth our pondering, each with regard to our own lives. But certainly, we have the ability to accept the master's invitation to freedom. Anything else from anyone while we're paused?
Yes, brother, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I am not a millstone expert, so I assume that when he says the few grains that stay near the peg escape, I'm assuming the peg is the hub around which the millstone turns.
Yes.
And so that gives us a pretty good metaphor, I think, for staying near our center.
Yes, exactly.
Am I on the right track?
You've read it perfectly. Our center being our divinity. At least that's one way to think about it.
We know in Buddhism on the wheel, the hub in the center, being the divine doesn't move, and then the further you get out on the wheel, the more you feel the effect of the wheel spinning,
Yes,
and it's the same thing.
exactly. Yes, the millstone, if you look at the millstone spinning, it looks like it's spinning more slowly at the center than at the edge. In fact, of course, it's not, but it appears to be, because the circle that it makes at the near the hub is smaller than the circle it makes out at the edge. It's a very deceiving thing to watch a millstone turn. I've actually had the privilege. Where I lived in France, there was a flour mill not far away. And so I got a chance to actually watch such a thing in operation. It was water powered. It was powered by a sluice. water turned the paddles and the paddles turned the wheel. Anything else from anyone? Thank you. Okay.
The master sang again, "Mother, mother, my boat is sinking here in the ocean of this world. Fiercely, the hurricane of delusion rages on every side. Clumsy is my helmsman, the mind. Stubborn, my six oarsmen, the passions.
Oh.
Into a pitiless wind I sailed my boat, and now it's sinking. Split is the rudder of devotion. Tattered is the sail of faith. Into my boat the waters are pouring. Tell me, what shall I do? For with my failing eyes, alas, nothing but darkness do I see. Here in the waves I will swim, O Mother, and cling to the raft of thy name." Mr. Viswas had been sitting in the room for a long time, He now left. He had once been wealthy, but had squandered everything in an immoral life. Finally, he had become indifferent to his wife and children. Referring to Mr. Viswas, the master said, "He is an unfortunate wretch. A householder has his duties to discharge, his debts to pay, his debt to the gods, his debt to his ancestors, his debt to the rishis, and his debt to wife and children. If a wife is chaste, then her husband should support her.
Chaste.
If a wife is chaste, then her husband should support her. He should also bring up their children until they are of age. Only a monk must not save. The bird and the monk do not provide for the morrow. But even a bird provides when it was young. It brings food in its bill for its chicks." Next, Balaram says, "Mr. Viswas now wants to cultivate the company of holy people." Master, with a smile, a monk's commandalu goes to the four principal holy places with him, but it still tastes bitter. Likewise, it is said that the Malaya breeze turns all trees into sandalwood. But there are a few exceptions, such as the cotton tree, the ashwatha, and the hog plum. Some frequent the company of holy men in order to smoke hemp. Many monks smoke it, and these householders stay with them, prepare the hemp, and partake of the prasad. Thursday, November 16th, 1882. The master had come to Calcutta. In the evening, he went to the house of Rajmohan, a member of the Brahmo Samaj, where Narendra and some of his young friends used to meet and worship according to the Brahmo ceremonies. Sri Ramakrishna wanted to see their worship. He was accompanied by M and a few other devotees. The master was very happy to see Narendra and expressed a desire to watch the young men at their worship. Narendra sang, and then the worship began. One of the young men conducted it. He prayed, "O Lord, may we give up everything and be absorbed in thee." Possibly the youth was inspired by the master's presence and so talked of utter renunciation. Sri Ramakrishna remarked in a whisper, "Much likelihood there is of that." Rajmohan served the master with refreshments. Sunday, November 19th, 1882.
Hold on, I have a question.
Sure.
Was that remark by Sri Ramakrishna, was that sarcasm?
Yes.
I
What's the
didn't.
likelihood of that?
I didn't think he did that.
Notice it's done in a whisper, just to
Yeah,
him.
remarked in a whisper.
He didn't broadcast it to the room. This
Sri Ramakrishna.
of renouncing everything, Sri Ramakrishna knew from his own life experience how very difficult that is. And so when this young man spoke of it glibly in this way, Sri Ramakrishna was a little sarcastic.
Mhm.
Don't think that the master was perfect in everything. He was capable of anger. He was capable of mild sarcasm. He was even capable of being fierce with people very occasionally, but he would very occasionally be quite fierce, tempestuous. So the master was not always mild and humble. So when he was made this remark, but you'll notice he did not make it sotto voce to the room. He just whispered it to M, knowing that M would record it because the master wanted it recorded, that he didn't see much likelihood of most householders being much in the way of real renunciants. Did I get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Actually, the master more or less said this, said the same thing even to Vishwa,
Yes.
in the
Exactly.
previous chapter.
Yes. He was a little sarcastic about Vishwas also.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who was in the process of divorcing himself, as M remarked, or divorcing himself from the company of holy people. Well, whose loss would that be?
Yeah.
But he didn't see it, so
Yeah.
he didn't see it then. Of course, he would come back round. He was, as Brahmananda said of another devotee at one point, Vishwas was backsliding.
Hmm.
So it isn't as if once, well, it's as Krishna says in the Gita, once you have started on the path toward Brahman, no effort is ever wasted. So the effort that Vishwas had made, though he might set it aside for the time being, it would return to him in time.
Yes.
Krishna is very explicit about that in his answer to Arjuna's question about such things. But yes, the master was capable of being sarcastic. Anything else? Very good question, or very good remark. Yeah. Shall we go on? All right.
Okay. Sunday, November 19th, 1882. It was the auspicious occasion of the Jagadatri Puja, the festival of the Divine Mother. Sri Ramakrishna was invited to Surendra's house in Calcutta. But first, he went to the house of Manu Mohan in the neighborhood. The master was seated in Manu Mohan's parlor. He said, God very much relishes the bhakti of the poor and the lowly, just as the cow relishes fodder mixed with oil cake. King Duryodhana showed Krishna the splendor of his wealth and riches, but Krishna accepted the hospitality of the poor Vidura. God is fond of his devotees. He runs after the devotee as the cow after the calf. The
Now,
mass,
notice
yes. Sure, brother.
Let that slide by. If we are devoted in our nature and we display that devotion, the Lord will come toward us
Yes.
and offer us this invitation to transcendence. So this is why I was so confident in what I said about Vishwasa
Yes.
and the other. We are so richly blessed the moment we accept the grace of becoming a spiritual aspirant. Once we embrace that, then certain things, according to all of the scriptures, not just Ramakrishna, but certain things, know the truth and the truth shall make you free, Jesus said. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. So it isn't just in Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. It isn't just in Sufism. It is in the great traditions that when you set your cap for greater spiritual realization, that which is needful will come to you, will run after you as a cow comes after her calf.
Yeah.
How reassuring is that? And I don't know if you've ever had the blessed opportunity to see cows with calves. When I was 17 years old, we had a little 6-acre farm in Arlington, California. And we raised calves. And the relationship between a mother cow and her calf, the look in her eye, the way she grooms that calf, it is just so. I can see why the master, of course, cows and calves are ubiquitous in India. They're everywhere. So he was very familiar with their relationship. And it is very sweet. Anything else from anyone?
You're so right, Brother Shankar. I have seen them when I was growing up in my aunt's house. Every time we go there, they had the cows and, all the time they did the milk business and all that they had in their home. That was, those days were more. That was my uncle's house. It was just amazing to see the calf and cow.
I
Yes.
used to milk that cow.
Yes, they're so beautiful. It's beautiful to see them. Just the same love as any other living being, I think. But you can see those big animals really clearly.
And cows have big, sweet eyes.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
It's okay, that's it. Go on. Okay. The master sang, and for that love, the mighty yogis practice yoga from age to age. When love awakes, the Lord, like a magnet, draws to him the soul. Then he said, Chaitanya used to shed tears of joy at the very mention of Krishna's name. God alone is the real substance. All else is illusory. Man can realize God if he wants to, but he madly craves the enjoyment of woman and gold. The snake has a precious stone in its head, but it's perfectly satisfied to eat a mere frog. Bhakti is the one essential thing. Who can ever know God through reasoning? I want love of God. What do I care about knowing his infinite glories? One bottle of wine makes me drunk. What do I care about knowing how many gallons there are in the grog shop? One jar of water is enough to quench my thirst. I don't need to know the amount of water there is on earth. Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Surendra's house. Many devotees had assembled there, including Surendra's elder brother, who was a judge. That's the end of that particular topic. Now we are moving on to futility of reasoning. Any comments for the previous lines, Brother Shankara? Move on? Okay.
Just how very clearly the master makes this the statement that God alone is the substance, all else is illusory. And so once we understand thoroughly, we see that the substance is in and through everything. But in the beginning, we have to say neti neti to the world. And this is what he meant by you can't get there through reasoning. You have to get there through devotion. So we say no to the worldly, what appears to be the substanceless, and yes to the divine presence, the substance. And then, as it says, love awakens in us. And when this happens, there's this kind of mixed metaphor, but nevertheless, the love awakens in us, and the magnet draws us to it automatically. We become like the iron filings that are drawn to a magnet completely automatically. The iron filings no longer have to do anything. They have loosed themselves from the big bar of iron that held them fast. Now they're filings, and so can be drawn to the magnet. Very, very good metaphors, and for us to keep in mind that once the love awakens in us, and we have separated ourselves from the great bar of iron that is the worldly love of pleasure and excess, then we can automatically be drawn into the grip of the divine. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? All right.
Next, futility of reasoning. Master to Surendra's brother. It's within the quotes. You are a judge. That is very good. But remember, everything happens through God's power. It is He who has given you your high position. That is how you became a judge. People think it is they who are great. The water from the roof flows through a spout that is shaped like a lion's head. It looks as if the lion were bringing the water out through its mouth. But look at the source of the water. A cloud gathers in the sky and rain falls on the roof. Then the water flows through the pipe and at last comes out through the spout. End quote. Surendra's brother's response, it's also in quote. The Brahmo Samaj preaches the freedom of women and the abolition of the caste system. What do you think about these matters? Master's reply, men feel that way when they are just beginning to develop spiritual yearning. A storm raises clouds of dust, and one cannot distinguish between the different trees, the mango, the hog plum, and the tamarind. But after the storm blows over, one sees clearly. After the first storm of divine passion is quelled, one gradually understands that God alone is the highest good, the eternal substance, and that all else is transitory. One cannot grasp this without tapasya and the company of holy men. What is the use of merely reciting the written parts for the drum? it's very difficult to put them into practice on the instrument. What can be accomplished by a mere lecture? It is austerity that is necessary, but that alone can one comprehend. You asked about caste distinctions. There is only one way to remove them, and that is by love of God. Lovers of God have no caste.
Now, note this. Lovers of God have no caste.
Definitely.
That applies to our class system here in the West, just as it did to the more formal caste system in India.
Yes.
The most humble person can be exalted, and sometimes is, because they avoid being worldly. But if we look at them with a careless eye, well, they just look poor. And there's a beautiful poem by Saint Teresa of Avila about seeing a poor man in the streets of Rome. And then in a dream, she saw him building a cathedral with God. Literally, the two of them working together to build a cathedral. And yet, when she saw this man on the streets of Rome, he seemed homeless and disheveled, and she felt pity for him until she had this dream. And then, of course, it changed her opinion entirely. So the same, this business of, it's love of God dispels all distinctions. Just, there are no distinctions in the love of God. We create, with our reasoning and our habits of mind, create all these distinctions. Anything else from anyone? Any questions, comments?
So true, Brother Shankara. In those days, it was very dominant caste system, in especially the time that Sri Ramakrishna was living. Even Sankaracharya, we read that last week in the Untouchable and the Dogs, 4 dogs, he was crossing and he didn't want to touch. Then the Untouchable gave him the wisdom in a very nicest way. Then Sankaracharya immediately transformed him. It transformed him.
That you remembered that.
Yeah, it was just so touching. And it's gotten better. Later on, the laws came in, and of course, there will always be some people with that caste system, no matter what you do. That's something you can't destroy or eliminate.
Just like there will always be this.
Exactly.
West. People,
That's all. Thank you.
Because someone looks as if they don't care worldly, that there's something wrong with them.
Right.
Okay.
Please, the only thing I just wanted to bring, of course, what you said is 100%, that's but Sri Ramakrishna also says you have to guard yourself. One of the thing is pride of God. When you become like that, your ego comes up. That is one of the things, because when he said, I think it was on page 13 or 35 or something, I forgot. But it says that the ego, because there are 8 fetters, and one of that is the pride of God.
Pride is always an impediment.
Yes.
Matter of pride of what? Spiritual pride, as a matter of fact, is said to be, by all students of pride, the most dangerous kind of pride. Because it will make us feel as if we're truly better than other people,
Mhm.
which makes us not able to see our own divinity, which of course prevents us from at all seeing their divinity.
That is why Sri Ramakrishna keeps on saying the best one is the servant attitude.
Yes, precisely. Yes. Yes, yes. Thank you. Anything else from anyone while we're stopped? All right, dear.
I'll read that one more time. You asked about caste distinctions. There is only one way to remove them, and that's by love of God. Lovers of God have no caste. Through this divine love, the untouchable becomes pure. The pariah no longer remains a pariah. Chaitanya embraced all, including the pariahs.
Remains. No longer remains a
Remains a pariah, exactly. Yes, the pariah no longer remains a pariah. Chaitanya embraced all, including the pariahs. The members of the Brahmo Samaj sang the name of Hari. That is very good. Through earnest prayer, one receives the grace of God and realizes Him. God can be realized by means of all paths. The same God is invoked by different names. Master in Theosophy. Surendra's brother asks, Sir, what do you think of Theosophy? Master, I have heard that man can acquire superhuman powers through it and perform miracles. I saw a man who had brought a ghost under control. The ghost used to procure various things for his master. What shall I do with superhuman powers? Can one realize God through them? If God is not realized, then everything becomes false. November 1882. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sri Ramakrishna arrived in Calcutta to attend the annual festival of the Brahmo Samaj, which was to be celebrated at Manilal Malik's house. Besides M and other devotees of the Master, Vijay Goswami and a number of Brahmos were present. Elaborate arrangements had been made to make the occasion a success. Vijay was to conduct the worship. The Kathak recited the life of Prahlada from the Purana. Kathak is a dance, of course. Its substance was as follows. Hiranyakasipu, Prahlada's father, was king of the demons. He bore great malice toward God and put his own son through endless tortures for leading a religious life. Afflicted by his father, Prahlada prayed to God, "O God, please give my father holy inclinations." At these words, the master wept. He went into an ecstatic mood. Afterwards, he began to talk to the devotees. Master says this, Bhakti is the only essential thing. One obtains love of God by constantly chanting His name and singing His glories. Ah, what a devotee Shivanath is. He is soaked in the love of God like a cheesecake in syrup. One should not think my religion alone is the right path and other religions are false. God can be realized by means of all paths. It is enough to have sincere yearning for God. Infinite are the paths and infinite the opinions.
Now notice this.
Yes.
Infinite the paths,
Again.
infinite the opinions. So whenever we run across somebody who is sincerely practicing according to their own way of being, even though it may be very different from our own, leave them and leave it be. It's none of our business. It's such a hard tendency for us in a social setting to run across somebody. You know, there are those who practice as Christian scientists. Now, Christian Science is a very different way of being and studying and living. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So we just have to leave it be. Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Next topic, the pure in heart see God. Let me tell you one thing. God can be seen. The Vedas say that God is beyond mind and speech. The meaning of this is that God is unknown to the mind, attached to worldly objects. Vaishnava Charan used to say, God is known by the mind and intellect that are pure. Therefore, it is necessary to seek the company of holy men, practice prayer, and listen to the instruction of the Guru. These purify the mind. Then one sees God. Dirt can be removed from water by a purifying agent. Then one sees one's reflection in it. One cannot see one's face in a mirror if the mirror is covered with dirt. After the purification of the heart, one obtains divine love. Then one sees God through His grace. One can teach others if one receives that command from God after seeing Him. Before that, one should not lecture. There is a song that says, "You have set up no image here within the shrine, O fool. Blowing the conch, you simply make confusion worse confounded." You should first cleanse the shrine of your heart. Then you should install the deity and arrange worship. As yet, nothing has been done. What can you achieve by blowing the conch shell and simply making a loud noise? Vijay sat on a raised stool and conducted the worship according to the rules of the Brahmo Samaj. Afterwards, he sat by the master. Master to Vijay, will you tell me one thing? Why did you harp so much on sin? By repeating 100 times, I am a sinner, one verily becomes a sinner. One should have such faith as to be able to say, what? I have taken the name of God. How can I be a sinner? God is our Father and Mother. Tell Him, O Lord, I have committed sins, but I won't repeat them. Chant His name and purify your body and mind. Purify your tongue by singing God's holy name. December 1882. In the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna was seated on the west porch of his room in the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. Among others, Baburam, Ramdayal, and M were present. These three were going to spend the night with the master. M intended to stay the following day also, for he was having his Christmas holidays. Baburam had only recently begun to visit the master. Master to the devotees. This is all within the quotes. A man becomes liberated even in this life when he knows that God is the doer of all things. Once Keshav came here with Sambhu Malik. I said to him, not even a leaf moves except by the will of God. Where is man's free will? All are under the will of God. Nangta was a man of great knowledge. Yet even he was about to drown himself in the Ganges. He stayed here 11 months. At one time, he suffered from stomach trouble. The excruciating pain made him lose control over himself, and he wanted to drown himself in the river. There was a long shoal near the bathing ghat. However far he went into the river, he couldn't find water above his knees. Then he understood everything and came back. At one time, I was very ill and was about to cut my throat with a knife. Therefore I say, O Mother, I am the machine, and thou art the operator. I am the chariot, and thou art the driver. I move as thou movest me. I do as thou makest me do. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
Well, here we have it again and again. God alone is the doer.
Yes.
And the more we think that we are the doer, the more divorced we are from our centeredness and our ability to see clearly what it is to be done and how to do it. When we are focused on the idea that the Lord is the doer, and we surrender our intellect to that idea, and we let our hearts and our higher minds rest in those thoughts, then things become clearer and clearer. And we are very well aware of what needs to be done. Furthermore, how to do it. And that improves and improves. And Krishna is very explicit about all this in chapters 4 through 6 of the Gita, how all of this works. It's the heart and soul of Karma Yoga. Anything else from anyone?
I find it a little contradictory that Ramakrishna almost slit his own throat, and then later he says suicide is a heinous sin.
Well, we can't compare our behavior to the avatars, Brahmadas. We just can't. He was about to slit his own throat, but then when he said suicide is the highest sin, he meant for the ordinary mortal, for us to give up on our lives rather than turn them toward the divine for guidance. That's what he was doing when he was about to slit his throat. He was saying, Mother, take me, guide me. And it become totally desperate. So as I say, we can't compare our behavior to that of the avatars, although it's unavoidable that our mind will go there. But we just have to tell our mind, well, perhaps there's something that's not understood here. Does that make sense to you, Brahmadas?
Yeah, he was desperate for God. I guess that's where we ultimately end up when we're, think their life is so terrible, you just want to end it. You turn to God.
Well, if we get to that state and we feel suicidal for that reason, I don't think we'd see any objection from the divine, but we'd see that our, just as Sri Ramakrishna's doubts were completely swept away by his experience of the mother in that moment, the same thing would happen to us. But most of us are not willing to come to that point. where we're, as the guru said, you want to know what it feels like to desire, to have real desire for God? And he plunges the devotee's head under the water at a river's bank and holds it there for some time. And then he pulls the head up and he said, how did you feel? And the devotee says, I was dying for a breath of air. And the teacher says, when you feel that way about your desire for the knowledge of God, God will grant that knowledge. So that level of desperation that could lead to suicidal thoughts is definitely there.
It probably was unbearable, that throat cancer pain he went through, Brother Shankara.
Well, that was at the end of his life, and that was a whole other scenario, dear.
He said, one time I was very ill and was about to cut my throat with it. So I was thinking maybe his throat cancer pain, illness.
Oh yeah, there was all of those thoughts returned, of course. He was a human as well as divine.
Yeah.
Mother points this out.
Yeah, he was so desperate to see the mother. Actually, this he did it in the temple, Kali temple.
Yes. Yes. But that was the first time. Later on, when he had the throat cancer, he was out at the Kashipur Gardens.
Mm.
And was thinking suicidal thoughts, because the pain would occasionally become unbearable. Then he would rise above it into transcendental consciousness, and those who were around him said it was as if there were nothing the matter with him. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
The devotees sing kirtan in the master's room as follows. Dwell, O Lord, O lover of bhakti, in the Vrindavan of my heart, and my devotion unto thee will be thy Radha, dearly loved. My body will be Nanda's home. My tenderness will be Yashoda. My longing for deliverance will be thy gentle gopi maids. Lift the Govardhan of my sin and slay my 6 unyielding passions. Fierce as the demons sent by Kamsa, sweetly play the flute of thy grace, charming the milch cow of my mind. Abide in the pasture of my soul. Dwell by the Jamuna of my yearning, under the banyan of my hope. Forever gracious to thy servant. And if not, but the cowherd's love can hold thee in Vrindavan's vale, then, Lord, let Dasarathi too become thy cowherd and thy slave. Again they sang, sing, O bird that nestles deep within my heart. Sing, O bird that sits on the kalpa tree of Brahman. Sing God's everlasting praise. Taste, O bird, of the 4 fruits of the kalpa tree, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Sing, O bird, he alone is the comfort of my soul. Sing, O bird. He alone is my life's enduring joy. O thou wondrous bird of my life, sing aloud in my heart. Unceasingly sing, O bird. Sing for everyone, even as the thirsty chatak sings for the raindrop from the cloud. A devotee from Nandan Bagan entered the room with his friends. The master looked at him and said, everything inside him can be seen through his eyes, as one sees the objects in a room through a glass door. This devotee and his brothers always celebrated the anniversary of the Brahmo Samaj at their house in Nandan Bagan. Sri Ramakrishna had taken part in these festivals. The evening worship began in the temples. The master was seated on the small couch in his room, absorbed in meditation. He went into an ecstatic mood and said a little later, "Mother, please draw him to thee. He is so modest and humble. He has been visiting thee." Was the master referring to Baburam, who later became one of his foremost disciples? Why so much suffering in God's creation? The master explained the different kinds of samadhi to the devotees. The conversation then turned to the joy and suffering of life. Why did God create so much suffering? M. Once Vidyasagar said in a mood of pique, "What is the use of calling on God? Just think of this incident. At one time, Genghis Khan plundered a country and imprisoned many people. The number of prisons rose to about 100,000. The commander of his army said to him, 'Your Majesty, who will feed them? It's risky to keep them with us. It will be equally dangerous to release them. What shall I do?' Genghis Khan said, 'That's true. What can be done?' 'Well, have them killed.' The order was accordingly given to cut them to pieces. Now God saw this slaughter, didn't he? But he didn't stop it in any way. Therefore, I don't need God. Whether he exists or not, I don't derive any good from him." End quote. That was from M. Master, is it possible to understand God's action and his motive? He creates, he preserves, and he destroys. Can we ever understand why he destroys? I say to the Divine Mother, "Oh Mother, I do not need to understand. Please give me my love. Give me love for thy lotus feet." The aim of human life is to attain bhakti. As for other things, the mother knows best. I've come to the garden to eat mangoes. What is the use of my calculating the number of trees, branches, and leaves? I only eat the mangoes. I don't need to know the number of trees and leaves. End quotes. Baburam, M, and Ramdayal slept that night on the floor of the master's room. It was an early hour of the morning, about 2 or 3 o'clock. The room was dark. Sri Ramakrishna was seated on his bed and now and then conversed with the devotees. Any comments, Brother Shankara? We're moving to the next topic. Compassion and attachment. I don't think we have enough time, Brother Shankara. It's 2 minutes left, so I think I should end.
Let's leave it be.
Okay.
The thing for us to grasp, if we're going to be mentally balanced about all this, is that there's no way to understand the ways of God, this horrible circumstance of Genghis Khan and so on was described. There's no way to understand the actions of God by the intellect. And our understanding that comes to us of the ways of God through the spiritual practice is not judgmental in any way, simply because we first reach the conclusion that we must be forgiving and non-judgmental of ourselves, that we are capable of any act, and that we are therefore, as human beings, we are not the doer. And so we come more and more to the conclusion that I will look out from these eyes, Master. I will look out from these ears. I will hear out from these ears. And I will receive whatever you present to me. And I will simply say, Hari Om, Hari Om. This is what it is. Glory to Hari, Hari Om. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult, particularly in the early years. And it never gets easy because the world continues to surprise us with its horrors and its gruesomeness. Particularly here at the end of the Kali Yuga, we're told that this is one of the reasons it's like the way it is. That it's at the end of the Kali Yuga, and this is part and parcel of the end of this dark age, the Iron Age, Kali Yuga. And so Sri Ramakrishna has come, choosing his birth in this prison, our Iron Age, to unchain us and set us free. That's what Breaker of This World's Chain says. So if we accept that and do our best to remain non-judgmental and forgiving of ourselves and of the world, it doesn't mean we condone evil. It means that we simply say, we do not understand, and so we do not judge. And that gives us some peace, though it is very difficult to be peaceful, to be centered, to be free from all passion in this time. So we'll hear more instruction from the Master next week about all of this. Anything else from anyone before we close? Anything at all?
I think this passage is very important. And I'm just thinking, I have to keep in memory fresh every day.
Yes.
This is really,
Yes, indeed, dear. We have to keep it in memory every day. Otherwise, the world will overwhelm us.
Yeah.
It is not called Mahamaya for nothing. It is Maya, but it is not just Maya. It is Mahamaya. And it is overwhelming. Thank you, Bala. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward knowing that the Mother, Father, Divine Being that is presented to us, that is offered to us in the opening prayer for these sessions, does indeed hold us in a loving and protective embrace. May we live and abide in that conviction. May it reassure us and comfort us. And when we are not reassured and comforted, may we have the presence of mind to turn inward rather than to continue our focus outward at what it is that is troubling us. And there's no two ways about the fact But that is difficult. As Bala just said, we have to remind ourselves every day, perhaps sometimes even every hour. So may we be well and in bright spirits until tomorrow night, when we'll take up the book Realizing God. Any final thought or comment or question from anyone? All right, Tears.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm curious whether the Vedanta Center of Atlanta participates in any sort of interfaith discussions with other spiritual traditions in Atlanta.
There have been such activities in the past. I'm no longer actively involved. So the thing to do is check with the website and see if there's anything there. If not, then write an email of inquiry just to info@vedantaatlanta.org, and you will be answered in due course. I don't know of anything that is going on right now. If you would like to bring something to the attention of the center as a possible involvement, please do that. And who is it we're speaking with?
This is Adam Wadley. I came to speak with you almost a year ago.
Okay.
I reached out to you about social engagement with a spirit of Leela.
Uh-huh.
Well, so I don't know if you.
I remember something of that, but I don't think it went anywhere, did it? So
no, I neglected to follow up. Absolutely.
Well, I'm not accusing you of anything, dear. I mean, it's so difficult to make things happen in this world. But if you are re-energized about this, just bring it to the attention. As I say, write an email, info@vedantaatlanta.org. That email will be duly discussed by the people who might be involved in helping you create such an activity. And certainly there's room for it in our schedule. So let's see what happens, Adam.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. And thank you for bringing it up. Anything else?
Welcome.
May I say to Adam, because right now I don't think there is anything is being, done. I know in the past, when you were active, there are people used to come to our center, but I don't know much about where are all those rest of the people and what is what.
Well, yeah, all of that was years and years ago, though. Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing like that has happened in my recollection for at least several years. So yes, there used to be regular interfaith gatherings at the center every Sunday afternoon, as I recall. So we'll just see whether Adam chooses to pursue this and see what comes of it.
But the other thing is there is a class on Sunday afternoons, and they read Nisargadatta, and there are few people from different religions would come. Maybe that might interest you. I don't know.
All right, absolutely. I'll plan on attending this Sunday.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, dears. Oh, come on.
Good night, Brother Shankara and everyone. See you all tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, there is another book.
Yes, Realizing God.
Might interest you, Adam. We just finished reading about Christ, Buddha. So we had all chapters of different religions there.
Yes.
Okay.
No, actually, even on the Saturday class, we are reading about Christ.
Yes, Saturday we are reading about Christ. Exactly.
Oh.
All right. And many things this week. Yes. I pledge to join you again this week. I look forward to it.
Very
It's on Saturday at 12 o'clock.
Sermon on the Mount. That's the book we're reading Saturday. That's Jeff is reading.
Great.
Yes, Jeff is right there.
okay.
Good night, Brother Shankara.
Next time.